there. My name is Dr. Vandevender Wright, and I'm one of the behavioral health providers here at Tri-Area Community Health. Today I'm going to talk with you about how to outsmart your technology and hopefully feel a little bit better. So there's several things on this handout that we're going to go through, but the first one I want to talk about is notifications. So we take our phones, these things, and our tablets and our game systems and anything else that connects to Wi-Fi and helps us find information or connect with others. We take those things pretty much everywhere with us, which in some ways is helpful because it means that we stay up to date and connected with people that we care about. But in some ways it's not helpful. And it can be distracting and lead to stress and tension and fear that you're missing out on things or knowing too much about what's going on in the world right now and having a hard time kind of disconnecting and unwinding. So one thing I want to talk with you about is ways to use your notifications and to limit them so that you're not getting distracted in important moments. So when we're driving, it can be helpful to silence our phone. We know that texting and driving takes too many lives every year, and it's pretty simple to move your phone's sound from on to that silent mode. And that can be something easy to do at the beginning of a trip in the car, especially if you're the driver. Another thing to think about is whether or not you're silencing your phone when you lay down for bed. One thing I talk with my patients about a lot is not using their phone when they're in bed because you can kind of get yourself down a rabbit hole when you're laying there trying to sleep. And also if you're trying to sleep and get a message or a call in the middle of the night, that's got a good chance of waking you up and making sleep even more difficult for you. So another time that it might be helpful to silence those notifications would be around bedtime. Also thinking about notifications, let's say that you're out doing something or in the middle of a meeting and you get a notification, whether it's an email, if you're on your laptop, or your phone buzzes or rings or vibrates, whatever it does when somebody's texting or calling you. Do you have to always answer it right then? Or can those wait? And so I know this can be challenging. There are times where it's important to check your phone immediately, like if you have a sick family member or you're the one that's on call for your employer. But there are other times that maybe you can wait to check that message and kind of continue doing what you're up to in that moment and be more mindful in that moment rather than getting distracted by your phone or your tablet or your laptop or whatever it is. Research also tells us that checking our messages less often may lead to less stress, which would be great, help us focus more, which isn't surprising. If you're not distracted by what's going on your phone, you might be able to pay attention better to things that are important. And you may also find that you've got time to do things that matter to you. The weather's getting nicer now, and so instead of being stuck on your phone or your computer trolling, it might give you more time to be outside or learning a new skill or spending time with people in person as you can. The next piece I want to talk about is social media. And I know 2020 and the start of this year has been very difficult for most humans on the face of the earth. But there's some things that we can do when we're using social media that might be helpful. So 2021 seemed like it birthed this term of doom scrolling. And I don't know if each of you is familiar with what that means or not, but basically it's kind of like watching a car crash, except being online. And so you just can't look away because there's so much stuff going on. And it's hard to kind of set the phone down, stop scrolling through Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and get on to doing something else that might be a little more helpful and healthy for you. So a way to counteract or do something other than doom scrolling is to actually be an active user of social media. And that sounds kind of like a nerdy, strange way to think about being online, but what being active on social media looks like is creating content. And that can mean a bunch of different things. That can mean writing your own posts. That can mean commenting on others' posts. That can mean sharing videos or messages that you think are cool with friends and family. But that's actually getting more engaged with what's online rather than just kind of being a passive observer, like somebody looking out the window at a car crash. So we found that actively using social media as a way to share and connect can be less harmful to your mental health and your physical health compared to just mindlessly scrolling through your feed. We also know that doom scrolling can lead to lower levels of well-being overall. So not just necessarily more depression, but maybe even less physical health as well if you're spending a lot of time sitting and just looking through your social media. One thing I'd encourage you to do as you're online, whatever your hub of media might be, whether you're a Snapchat person or an Insta fan, or if you're sticking with Facebook or Twitter, pay attention to how posts make you feel. If you feel especially unhappy or frustrated or just icky, without any better way of putting it, unfollow that post or hide it or do something where it's not still in your feed, in your face, making you feel worse. Your social media is yours, and they make ways to clean it up so that it's not as detrimental or upsetting for you. Another thing I'd encourage you to think about with social media is to find ways to add some healthy variety into your feed or the accounts that you follow. So you can follow accounts of folks that have common interests of yours. Like for me, I really enjoy gardening and homesteading, and some of my favorite accounts focus on content like that. I'm also somebody that really likes birds and squirrels. So those are pieces that come up in my feed that make me not hate social media as much. But for you, that might be things like interior design or sports or cooking, or things that are pretty special interests, like Dungeons and Dragons or crystals, herbal remedies, that type of thing. Whatever it is that piques your interest, see if you can find some accounts that have that material coming up so that you've got some stuff that is actually good for you coming through, rather than only doom and gloom and folks that are making you mad because you don't agree with them. The last thing that I'll say about how we can start to outsmart our technology, since it's pretty much everywhere these days, is to think about how you're recharging. And I'm not really talking about how you plug your technology in the wall to get it charged back up. I'm more so meaning how you unwind and take care of yourself. So one thing I'd encourage you to do is to avoid relying on your technology as the only way to connect with people. If you're able to spend time with folks in person and do that safely, I'd encourage you to make that a priority. Of course, I know COVID has made the world different in how we interact with people, but as the weather gets warmer, maybe there are ways to be around folks that are safer than they have been with wintertime and being closer and cramped up. Another thing to think about is it's a lot easier at this point to do video calling rather than texting or phone calling. And there's something about being able to see somebody's face and reactions in real time rather than wondering what they're thinking if you see those 3 dots as they're writing, or you're waiting for them to respond while you're on the phone with them. So video calling can be a more meaningful way to connect with folks compared to text messaging or talking on the phone, if you're able to do that. Another thing I'd encourage you to think about is find ways to make some screen-free time to spend with your family and your friends, whether that's something like a game night or a special meal night. In my house, tacos and pizza kind of rule the roost. And so things like a Taco Tuesday or having pizza every Friday and spending time talking to each other and sitting in the same space, that can go a really long way and helping folks feel connected and not so isolated. Because one thing with COVID that we've noticed is folks are feeling very isolated, and that's something that's really harmful overall to our health. So finding ways to connect with each other. And then the last thing that I'd like you to think about is how can you relax without relying on this little piece of technology that's really interesting, but also makes a pretty good paperweight when you're not using it. So if there's things that you enjoy that aren't involving technology, whether that's being outside and doing something out there, whether that's learning a new skill, whether you're somebody that's musically inclined or somebody that likes to make things with your hands, or maybe you like to cook and there's some recipes that you've been thinking of trying. Also, just giving your home a clean sweep sometimes can be pretty relaxing. So something to think about there. If there's a part of your home that needs some decluttering, maybe now's the time to do that to help you have a little more peace of mind. It also doesn't hurt to look out your window and see what animals are visiting your yard, especially now as the seasons are changing. And that's something that doesn't cost you any money, and it can be really interesting and exciting too if you give it a chance. So some things to think about. I encourage you to give these a try. And if you need more assistance or guidance or have more questions, certainly reach out to us. Behavioral health is here to help as much as we can. So hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.